Hello and welcome to episode 21 of AARGH My Optics, a podcast where two adults discuss, overanalyze and generally take a kid's toy and media franchise a little too seriously. Usually that of the Transformers. I am your deeply serious Zen master with a dark past co-host, Orion Ghia, and with me is my lumbering idiot savant with a heart of gold co-host, Virtual Dave. Say hello to our listeners, Virtual Dave.
Hello, everyone.
So, today, you find us doing another one of our retrospective episodes where we dredge up a Transformers line of old and talk about it for a couple of hours. And this time, we're going to tackle the often overlooked or underrated Transformers Animated.
Mm-hmm.
So, just for a bit of background, after 7 years of the Transformers brand being ostensibly handed over to the Japanese during the Unicron Trilogy era, 2007 saw Transformers back where it began, sort of, in North America. At the time, Hasbro had a number of irons in the fire. The Transformers movie franchise was kicking off, live-action one. Transformers Classics had been running as a nostalgia-based placeholder toy line. There were still a few alternators and G1 commemorative reissues kicking about the shelves of Toys R Us, and something given the working title of Transformers Heroes, which had been in development since 2004, was about to come to fruition. Transformers Animated was a partnership between Hasbro and Cartoon Network Studios to develop an animated TV show and toy line. It was delayed somewhat to make way for the 2007 live-action movie and its accompanying toy line. Transformers Animated was vastly different in style, tone, and format to anything that had come before, and it debuted on Virtual Dave's birthday in 2007.
Woohoo!
When he was what? 15?
I messed up the maths last time. I'm not going to do it again.
I think I have a better idea of how old you are than you do. I think you were 15, roughly. For context, I turned 29 in 2007, which coincidentally is Dave's age right now, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So, as a fresh-faced teenager, how did Animated find you in 2007, Dave?
In doing my research for this, I was trying to remember where I would have watched Animated, and I really can't tell you how I watched it. I do remember, obviously, the movie coming out, the build-up, the hype around that, and seeing the toys in stores and whatnot. But when Animated itself, like, I think the first time I saw it was in a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
I used to buy, the standard magazines that had a toy in the front and do the competitions and whatnot. In there, they had something about Transformers Animated, like a little spread talking about the show. And they had a poster of all the characters and that iconic cover of all of them doing a cool pose.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, after watching the movie, the Michael Bay movie, I thought that this was going to be like some sort of Saturday morning show of that.
Right.
And I thought, oh, the green one must be Ratchet.
Mm-hmm.
But that one looks like G1 Ratchet, so that can't be right. And I thought, oh, that must be Jazz, but it's Prowl. And, I remember thinking that this was like some sort of, they just messed up the names. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, it was a bit jarring, wasn't it? If the movie was your first experience, I know it wasn't your first experience, but if it was your first experience of Transformers at the time, especially since that movie had just come out earlier that year, seeing this TV series, it's very, very different. It's not at all the same thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably what it was. I just assumed that there was going to be more of a connection between the movies and this.
Yeah.
But I think when I eventually started watching it, that became very clear that it had nothing to do with the movie.
Mm.
Better for it, to be honest.
Well, yeah, yes, I 100% agree with that.
But yes, I did watch it, and I vaguely remember watching season 1 at least on TV somehow. And I don't think I watched the other 2 seasons until much later via YouTube or something. But I loved it. I bought pretty much most of the toys in the toy line I could get.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great show.
Right. My experience was, I remember it being teased, because 2007 was pretty much the last year I was interested in Transformers before the purge. Well, maybe 2008. But, like, the movie had just come out. It was dog shit. and I hated Hasbro. And I saw them teasing. They teased some artwork, some early artwork for Transformers Animated. I don't know whether it was before the movie came out or after the movie came out, but I remember it being teased, and I remember there being quite a lot of negativity towards the art style, which I actually really liked the look of. I thought it looked great, and I wouldn't have minded seeing the show be a bit more like some of that early concept work, because I quite liked it. It was a little bit more, it was a little bit less deliberately Cartoon Networky.
It was more like Iron Giant type of feel, the way they looked.
Yeah, exactly. It felt stylistically a bit more distinct.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, I thought it looked good. Lots of people didn't. Lots of people thought it looked kidsy and, you know, kid-orientated. Heaven forbid, yeah? A toy line and a Cartoon Network show be kid-orientated. Oh, no. Let's have Murder Prime instead.
I can't remember if I liked the art style at, those initial the images that we would have seen online and stuff, but I can't imagine me not liking it because I didn't like how the Unicron trilogy went from 2D animation to 3D, and more and more so. Like, I didn't like the way the designs of the characters looked in 3D. I think it's the 2D animation kind of suited it a bit better. I
mean, the 3D animation in the Unicron trilogy was bad. Mostly.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was that period of time where 3D animation was a bit clunky and overused as well.
I mean, it just makes me like, I can't believe when people can't take Beast Wars 3D animation and complain of its look and design, when I think sometimes some of the stuff in Unicron trilogy was worse.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand people looking at Beast Wars, especially if they're younger and they don't remember it happening at the time. It doesn't look wonderful by today's standards, but you have to look at it in context.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, I was interested, but I was losing interest in Transformers as a whole at the time. So I did watch seasons 1 and 2, and I think I started watching season 3, and I think I just dropped off. So I think I've only seen it all the way to the end, like recently, as in doing the research for this podcast. As for the toys, I got some of them. I enjoyed them quite a lot. Didn't have as many as you, clearly, by the sound of it anyway. I had quite a few of the show characters. I basically bought the ones I liked.
Okay.
And we'll get onto the ones I don't like later.
My optics!
So, before we get on to the show itself, should we just talk a little bit about how the show was developed? I mean, do you know much about that?
I think it had the same lead designer from Teen Titans and...
Yeah, art director Derek J. Wyatt, R.I.P. He died last year, I think. Art director and lead character designer. He's pretty much responsible for how the show looks.
Yeah.
He previously worked on, shock horror. He previously worked on Legion of Superheroes and Teen Titans, and that's why it looks like those things. And it's very superheroic in tone as well, so it kind of fits, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the majority of the stuff I knew about it, even as it was airing, is about how it had a strong art style approach like Teen Titans. It was very, very stylized, and it was really going to focus on that hero element. But that's about as much as I know.
Well, I mean, the art director previously worked on Teen Titans, and he was a big Transformers fan as well. You can see it. Like, the animation style is very similar to shows like Teen Titans, like a lot of Cartoon Network shows at the time. This being a very savvy move, I think, by Hasbro, that they... And even though it did end up scuppering the show, they got together with a network that makes good cartoons and said, look, make us a good cartoon show. And it was a collaboration with Cartoon Network, who at the time were making and had made great stuff. You know, you have things like Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Lab and Teen Titans. All kind of were massive. That worked really well. And there was a lot of collaboration, which we'll talk about a bit when we get on to talking about the toys. So they brought across that distinctive art style, the Cartoon Network art style. And it was also unlike, and we mentioned this earlier, unlike that kind of CGI-ness of the old Unicron Trilogy stuff, or the previous Unicron Trilogy stuff. They went for a more kind of hand-drawn style, which I really, really appreciated. It's a very nicely animated, very good-looking show.
Oh yeah, it's well, I guess you can really tell in the way characters fight, or the way that they express themselves, or even like little things like Bulkhead. You know how he has the big doors on his back.
Yeah.
I like how they flip around and he sits on them.
Yes, yes, that's true. Yeah. No, it's well thought out, and I mean, apparently the design style was a deliberate attempt to attract modern youth viewers, as it were.
Like me.
Yeah, exactly. You at the time, well, I suppose you were maybe a little old for it at like 15, but yeah, roughly. The robots have a more kind of organic feel to them. Apparently that was all to do with wanting to allow the robots to be more expressive and more able to feel more like proper characters rather than big blocks that moved around the screen. You know what I mean? I mean, you look at like those Unicron Trilogy shows, and everyone just their legs when they run, they look mad, and they don't look like real things. They look kind of nuts.
It also allows them to go off model a lot, and it not be a problem. Like when it happened in Transformers Armada and they went off model, it looked so weird, so hilariously bad.
Well, I mean that was also because it was poorly animated and poorly drawn at times. Like it wasn't. Yeah. Some of it was good, but some of it wasn't. Yeah, it's much more consistent. This show is much more consistent. Like the animation barely falls down at all. It's very good. And yeah, the organic thing just allows you to kind of be more dramatic and move more dramatically, and it doesn't matter if people's limbs and body stretches, and because you're doing it in a hand-drawn way, it looks fine, you know?
Yeah.
So they're able to express more emotion, basically.
I do love that they carried over some of the very Japanese transformation sequences, though. I mean, they didn't overdo it. It was very sprinkled. They're very lights flashing behind them transformations.
Agreed. It happens, but it doesn't happen every episode.
Yeah.
That starts getting very tedious in the trilogy. Apparently, Bulkhead was one of the first ones, talking of Bulkhead, was one of the first ones to be designed by Derek J. Wyatt, because he was unfettered by previous designs and nostalgia. You know, he was a new character, which is quite good. I'm glad that they brought new characters in, like Bulkhead, brand new. No one, Lugnut's new. You know, like there are new characters and ones based on older ones. You know, it's not just let's just do the same guys over and over and over.
Oh yeah, even introducing like new concepts for characters, like Lockdown being a bounty hunter and him being a...
Lockdown was a new character.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it was nice that they not just introduced a new character like Bulkhead being part of the team. Lockdown was a bounty hunter of such, but a bounty hunter who wasn't really aligned with anyone. He wasn't necessarily...
He's Death's Head.
Yeah, that. Like, he's not a...
He is essentially Death's Head. They've even admitted it. They've even admitted that he was quite considerably based on Death's Head, and then later on they named his ship the Death's Head.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but go on.
I was going to say it's one of those new... Lockdown's one of those examples of a new character who's really stuck, similar to Bulkhead, and he's ended up in other shows and live action movies and things.
Yep.
Like, it just goes to show how good they were done, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And with it being developed in concert with the movie, obviously you've got some movie bits coming through, like the Allspark, which we've previously discussed. The Allspark exists purely because they didn't want to call it The Matrix, because the Matrix movies existed, which you found actually absolutely shocking the first time I told you.
I did. I like that the Matrix, the Allspark looked like a giant Matrix, the container it was in.
It looks more like a suitcase.
An orange suitcase with a grey handle.
Yeah.
Similar.
Yeah, I suppose it does look a bit like The Matrix, yes. Yeah. It's true. And Blackout appears much later as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
so he's a movie character, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Other important creative staff included executive producer James Register, who was, I think at the time, the vice president of Cartoon Network.
Oh.
And Marty Eisenberg, story editor, who previously worked on Beast Machines.
Mm-hmm.
He was responsible for a lot of the scripts. And then there are a few other people, a few other kind of Cartoon Network alumni, like Arino Maramba and Matty Youngberg, I think, who were the main directors on it.
My optics!
It's a Transformers TV show, but with a difference. It's very much got a kind of super heroic kind of tone, rather than what we've had previously.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's it goes to show, like, there's been many Transformers series over the years, and a lot of them kind of stick to a formula, set out by G1.
Mm-hmm.
2 warring factions, basically at a stalemate until Megatron comes up with them, weapon of the week to turn the tables or something, called as a MacGuffin he's chasing. Whereas much in this show, they've kind of thrown that out the window, and they're doing something very different, but yet it still stays true to a lot of what you already know in Transformers lore. Like, it's a different way of starting the show to begin with.
It still kind of adheres to a lot of the tropes, but yeah, it does do it in a different way.
Yeah, like, I think, say, like, how the characters are introduced, or, like, how you find out more about them as the show goes along. You realise that this is not just, all bots are good guys, Decepticons are bad guys. Like, there is definitely some sort of grey area amongst both sides, because...
You think?
Like, it's they've done it in a way where you've never really seen the corruption on the Autobot side as much as the show puts it out. Like, all the stuff on Cybertron and Sentinel Prime and all the other Autobots who are meant to be the actual elite warriors, who are not this team that we're following.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, it's almost similar. It's almost similar in a way to, like, Beast Wars, because they're not the main cast are not warriors.
No, that's true. Yeah,
they are like a repair team. They're not equipped for the battle they've been thrown into, but by the end of it, you believe that Optimus Prime is worthy to be leader of all Autobots, as it were.
Do you?
I mean, I do.
All right. But yeah. I mean, it is definitely a different take. Because, I mean, maybe we should just talk rough... For those who haven't watched it, I mean, why are you even listening to this if you haven't watched it? And there may be some spoilers. I should probably stick that in there. There may be some spoilers if you haven't watched all 3 seasons. I'll try and avoid spoilers, but, there may be a few. But, yeah, the general plot, the setup, is that the Great War happened in the past, and it seems to be played out in a very kind of G1 sort of way, generally.
Pretty sure those clips are from G1.
There are some clips, yeah, but that's that's just a homage, isn't it? It's not saying this is the same continuity. It's just saying this is what the Great War looked like, and there are clips of G1. But it's more of a kind of like, hey, nod to the old school fans kind of thing, rather than this is all in continuity. But yeah, so you've got the Great War. The Autobots won the war, we assume.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Decepticons are like in exile or something, aren't they, basically?
Yeah.
And then you've got a maintenance crew led by a young, inexperienced Prime. And in this inanimated, Prime is a rank. And it's not even a particularly high rank. It's below something like Magnus, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So he runs a space bridge maintenance crew. And the crew consists of Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Bulkhead, Ratchet, and Prowl.
Mm-hmm.
They happen to be out fixing a particular space bridge, and then all of a sudden they find the Allspark somehow. It just happens to be there, And then they get attacked by a Decepticon battleship, which of course is called the Nemesis, and is of course under the control of a guy called Megatron, who is the ultimate leader of the Decepticons. What are the chances? And the Decepticon team consists of Megatron, Starscream, Lugnut, Blitzwing, and weirdly Black Arachnia.
Mm-hmm.
And battle ensues. Starscream betrays Megatron. Autobot ship goes through the space bridge. Megatron on board. All but Starscream abandon the Nemesis as it hurtles towards a broken space bridge. And then, above a very familiar-looking planet, Megatron gets thrown overboard from the Autobot ship, and the Autobot ship crash lands, this time in a lake, Lake Erie in Detroit. And then we go forward 50 years, and they've all been offline for that time. And then they get woken up due to something, I can't remember what it was now. Probably some kind of experiment gone wrong by Isaac Sundak, who, in the time between them crash landing and them reawakening in the 22nd century in Detroit, he's kind of basically become like this, well, what is he? He's basically a robotics genius. And the city's full of robots that he's designed and built.
Yeah, he's like, what's his name? Like if Elon Musk and Steve Jobs all kind of came together and made a robot empire in Detroit.
Yes, something like that. Something like that, yeah. And he...
Entrepreneur.
Yes, exactly. And he runs like a huge, Sundak Industries, and that's that. So that's basically the setup. And from that point, Bumblebee befriends Isaac Sundak's daughter, Sari, and for some reason, the Allspark gives her a magic key that solves every problem ever. And then something with the key alerts the Decepticon ship, so Starscream turns up, and things just start to move slowly towards the reveal at the end of the first season that... Was it revealed at the end of the first season, or is it earlier than that?
It's earlier than that. It's earlier than that. It's the end of that 3-part miniseries. It
is, you're right, yeah. And the reveal is that Megatron's head survived, and he's inside Sundak's tower. And it turns out Isaac Sundak based most of his robotics technology on stuff not stolen, but taken from that head, basically. And then Megatron comes online, and the whole first season is all about Megatron basically getting himself a body back.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we have some very kind of like quite light-hearted kind of superheroic kind of stuff, generally.
Yeah, it's very much establishing the Autobots in this world and them interacting with humans in a world where they're already kind of used to robots and robotics, but not as advanced as them.
Yeah, not sentient transforming ones.
But like it's not as shocking to everyone that there's giant robots going around. It's more the destruction they cause in these massive fights.
It's good that the Autobots you do see the Autobots fixing that destruction.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they do kind of become, in a way, the kind of Detroit's superhero team.
Yeah. Saving people from various superpowered people or, experiments gone wrong, and, then afterwards they clean up and shake their hands with the mayor. It's all...
Yeah, exactly. And you have human supervillains as well.
Yeah.
And many of the episodes are based around that kind of thing. The Decepticons do turn up, but for most of the first season, I wouldn't say they're there a lot. They're there here and there. Sometimes they're behind the scenes, sometimes they're not. But there are whole episodes that have nothing to do with the Decepticons.
Yeah, I think some of those are... I don't know what's the best to describe it. It's very much like when the Decepticons are introduced, it's a gauge of like, okay, so when they fight the humans, yeah, they may have some sort of weird robotic enhancement to make them a bit of a threat, especially at a human level. But, the Autobots most of the time can deal with them pretty easily. And then you have that balance with when a Decepticon arrives and just knocks the crap out of them and sends them through buildings, and like how much more of a... Just stature-wise, they're massive, most of the Decepticons compared to the Autobots. And when they arrive, you get the the difference in how severe when they are there compared to when it's just...
Well, and there's a huge difference between how the Autobots are size-wise and also what they're equipped for. I mean,
yes.
they're maintenance bots. They don't have weapons as such. They have tools.
Yes.
Whereas Decepticons are armed to the teeth. Because the Decepticons are a warring faction. These guys, they go about fixing space bridges. So they have magnets and axes and tools for fixing things, you know? I mean, Bulkhead has a wrecking ball, you know? Like, they're not really designed for combat.
Yes, and they very much have the limitations of not being able to fly as well, because that is something they keep in this, is that all the Decepticons can fly.
Yeah, well, that's a proper, like, nod and a wink to G1, isn't it, really? There's a lot of that in this. There's lots and lots and lots of that. Maybe we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, it's very much kind of an episodic, superheroic kind of show, even though it has an overarching plot, which in season 1 is Megatron getting himself a new body and returning at the end of the first season. The episodes can be viewed quite standalone. They don't necessarily have to be watched in order. This is much more true, I say, of season 1 and maybe 2 than 3, but definitely... You definitely get that feeling that you could just switch it on a Saturday morning, and it didn't matter if you'd seen episodes 1 to 5. You could be watching episode 6 and go, oh, I get this. This makes sense.
I guess it fits the type of formula of like kids shows at the time, you know, that whole... You can jump in at any point during those type of early episodes, and you'll still be able to follow who the characters are and whatnot. And because, I guess, the big bad hasn't really been revealed yet, you've still got time to latch on. But it's, I think, villains-wise, in those first few seasons, I really liked the mishmash of, you know, human characters and Decepticons. It was very interesting to see, like, I've forgotten his name, but Meltdown?
Meltdown, yeah.
The guy who becomes this acid person, how someone like that is like, even though he's a human, a metahuman or whatever, he's still quite a threat to, you know, human and...
Well, yeah, because he can basically melt Transformers, so... like, that's it's kind of like, it's almost like kryptonite, isn't it, in a way, to a Transformer?
Yeah. It's just sort of like, I think, it's not something that gets played around with a lot in Transformers, that humans are considered some sort of a threat to Transformers.
Well, I mean, unless you read Marvel UK or the Marvel...
Yeah, I know you guys have got your short circuit or mega circuit, whatever that is. Yeah. Right.
Circuit breaker.
There we go.
Yeah, that's only one example, but yes. And that kind of makes sense because Marvel Comics are used to writing superhero comics, so it's not surprising that there are human threats. So, yeah, it kind of mirrors that in a way.
My optics!
The cartoon began with a 3-episode mini-movie, first aired on Cartoon Network on your birthday, Boxing Day 2007, and it was followed by a 13-episode season, which started airing in January. But the toys themselves didn't hit the shops until spring of 2008, so there's a bit of a gap.
Wow.
Typical Hasbro timing.
Typical Hasbro.
Transformers Animated got delayed because of the movie's popularity. It would have been out earlier if it wasn't for the movie. And of course, when they were developing it, it wasn't meant to have anything to do with the movie. The movie didn't even exist yet. So that's why it's so different, in a way. It saw the return of several G1 voice actors reprising their roles. Susan Blue playing RC. Corey Burton was playing Shockwave, as well as also playing Megatron. But he played Shockwave in the original G1 cartoon. And John Muschietti was playing Blur. And there were a few others here and there. And our favourite, David Kaye, previously Megatron from Beast Wars, played Ultras Prime for the first time.
Yeah, that was... I mean, I didn't realise that happened until many years later that it was David Kaye. And I think I love the character even more so because of it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we'll get into it when we talk about the characters, but do you remember our last talk about leaders, and I picked Optimus Prime. It's now that you've gone back to the series, you get where I was coming from?
I do, but I don't agree.
Oh, okay. We'll get into that. Oh, I'm interested.
I mean, no, I do, but we'll get onto it. Yeah, we talked about it in our Top of the Bots leaders. Was it it was the one that we actually put out, not the...
Yeah, the other one.
Not the other one that is going to be exclusive content at some point on Patreon, which is about toys. But this was the one about our favourite leaders. And without ruining it, guys, it's about two or three podcasts back now, probably episode 18 or something. You placed Optimus Prime quite highly in your favourite leaders. Animated Optimus Prime, obviously. But I do see what you were talking about. I just don't... I'll get onto it. But yeah, no, I mean, David Kay did a great job. He always does. Okay, so since we've kind of already alluded to it a little bit, let's talk about the characters. Would you like to take us through your thoughts on... Let's go with the Autobots first. So who are the main Autobot characters?
Well, I guess we should start with everyone's favourite Kid Appeal character. We've got Bumblebee in the show. I think this is probably the last time for a long time that Bumblebee could talk. For like 10 years.
It's the first time in a long time we've had a Bumblebee.
Oh yes, of course, that as well. Like this is the first show they got his license, trademark, his copyright.
Yeah, they got the trademark back for the movie, for the Transformers movie. So originally, when they were developing this show, they hadn't got the trademark, and he was going to be Hotshot.
Ah, yes, yeah. I think I've seen he's in it as well, though, isn't he? At some point.
Yeah, later, but
yeah.
But originally, Bumblebee was going to be Hotshot, and Ratchet was going to be Red Alert.
Oh right.
But anyway, so Bumblebee is an annoying jerk character put there for kids to idolise.
Bumblebee, yes. At the start, he's
at the
loud.
start.
He is loud, obnoxious, arrogant, very similar to Season 1 G-Ball. And then you've got Bulkhead, who is massive, and...
I've got lovable, clumsy, idiot big guy.
Yes, yeah. I think that sums up Bulkhead. He's one of those Autobots who you would think would be, like, just design-wise, you would think he would be like a massive brawler or, like an Ironhide type, like a tough guy, but he's really not. And it really,
Well, he is. He's a tough guy. But he's more of a, he's a workman. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's. I think out of all of them in that first season, is like he really cements that whole thing about don't judge a book by its cover. Mm-hmm. Like he is not that Autobot, but he has to be sometimes. If that makes sense. Like he's not necessarily the tough guy, but he doesn't mind stepping up to that when it comes to saving his friends or whatever. Yeah. Like, he doesn't actually want to hurt people, but he'll protect.
Well, I mean, look at his design. He's just a big block.
Yes. Yeah.
He is huge. He's much bigger than the rest of them.
Yeah. And what else? You've got Ratchet, who I think out of all of them, he's the only one who actually was in the war and saw stuff.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of stuff. Like, serious PTSD from Ratchet and, depression. Mm-hmm. And I think, especially for the first season, they will kind of fob it off that he's just old. And I know you say to watch out for Decepticons, but they can't be that bad. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've already beat them. What's to worry about, Ratchet? Mm. And you've got Prowl, who is unlike any other version of Prowl, so up to that point, of just being a loner. He doesn't like working in a team. He prefers to do things on his own. He thinks that because of his ninja training, he's a lot more fluid, stealthy. He thinks that the others are just clumsy and irritable, and gets in his way.
I never got that idea from him at all. Lots of people say that, and I don't think he ever says anything like that ever. So where do people get this idea from?
It's only for like the first few episodes. He gets out of it.
Okay, yeah.
Halfway through this first season,
But you learn by the end of season 3 why he would have been like that, really.
Oh yeah, what I was going to get to, all of them have these things that as the show goes along, you find out why basically why they ended up on this crew of misfits.
Yeah.
And why they are the crew of misfits. You know, each of them have a character trait that is caused by some sort of event in their past.
Yeah.
And you can tell it was really well thought out how they were going to reveal each of those things and how it would tie in to the episode or a villain or someone coming back from Cybertron. Like it was well thought out why they weren't all perfect from the get-go, why they weren't all a friendly, you know, chummy team from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to build up to it. And I think you really appreciate it more and you love the characters, even the annoying ones, or you understand why they're annoying.
I don't understand why Bumblebee's annoying.
I think Bumblebee is annoying, or he's loud, because he wanted to fit in with the elite guards, and he wanted to go through the ranks and to be like, you know, Sentinel and all those others. And he was willing to do anything to do so. And when he couldn't, I think he just does it for attention. That's the best way to really, it's like a younger sibling, I suppose, what you would say. It's, he's doing things in order just to be in the spotlight and stuff like that.
Sure. I just think he's annoying for the entire 3 seasons.
I think he's
I don't think he has any redeemable features. I think he's a horrible character.
Oh, I don't go that far, but
I just don't like him. I don't know. I just don't find him entertaining. But I understand. I don't know why it is, but every kids show has to have some annoying little jerk making wisecracks and just basically being a dick. For some reason, that's the one we're meant to like.
That's what I was saying. He reminds me a lot of like season 1 Cheetor, but Cheetor definitely kind of grows out of that as the show goes along.
Yeah, whereas Bumblebee doesn't.
He doesn't. He definitely sticks with those tropes.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that. But I mean,
well, we haven't spoken about Prime, and I think that's probably one we want to get onto because we clearly have different opinions on Prime.
Well, yeah, I'll save Prime for last. I think from the first episode, you see Prime has the skill, like he's been trained for battle. Because in that first episode where the space bridge is about to blow up or something, and it's all going everywhere, he saves each of his team, and he does it in a really, cool, flashy way. And even Prowl is shocked by his elegance and being able to do it. So there was like hints of that he could do stuff, but in order for leading a team, he's obviously very inexperienced with commanding other Autobots and, getting them to gel. So it wasn't a question of his skills, it was more a question of his leadership at the beginning. Even he doubts himself a lot in the show.
Does he?
Yeah.
I mean, it's subtle. He's quite one note. I mean, I like him enough. I think he's a good character, but I don't know, I find other characters more interesting than him.
Oh, yeah. It's not so much about him being interesting, it's more just you really get the feeling that he's, like all the others, he's troubled by his past of making bad decisions or not being able to save people. And sometimes you feel like he's overcompensating. Like, at the end of the first season, before Megatron arrives, he has to get them all together and protect the Allspark, and he's just doing a terrible job. Like, it's just...
Yeah, okay, I'd agree with that. I would agree with that. I mean, he's fine. I don't hate him. I wouldn't say he's as complex a character as, say, Optimus Primal from Beast Wars.
No.
He's similar in a lot of ways, but he's kind of a simpler version of that, I think.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. This show has loads of parallels to Beast Wars.
And G1 and everything else.
Yeah. But I mean...
This show is nostalgia done right, in my opinion, because it takes lots of influences, lots of little visual cues and little Easter eggs and stuff.
Oh, so much of that.
From previous shows, from the entire gamut of Transformers, not just G1, Beast Wars and so on, and it throws them all in there while still being its own thing.
Yes. The amount of times you see Spike, Daniel, and Carly in their very 2005 clothes, whereas everyone else is wearing normal stuff. It's just,
yeah, it's kind of like human characters. Yeah,
it is great how it's sprinkled in there, and it's not. I get what you mean. Yeah, it's done well.
It definitely makes little kind of references to G1 and other things. Like you've got Prime has a G1 trailer in one scene, I think, and like you say, you've got the Witwicky family appearing here and there, and like we mentioned earlier, the clips of the war that were from G1. I think it was from War Dawn. I think
they even have the Pretenders as like some sort of human experiments gone wrong.
Bomb Burst and Submarauder.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Weird Al Yankovic plays Wreck-Gar.
Oh, does he?
Yep.
Oh.
Did you not know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, he does the voice of Wreck-Gar.
Oh, right.
Which is a nice kind of nod to Dare to be Stupid. Yeah, because I read this actually. Originally, the creators wanted Eric Idle to play Wreck-Gar like he did in the movie. But he was busy making Spamalot, I think. So they asked Weird Al instead. And I mean, Wreck-Gar even looks like Weird Al.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
And I think that's deliberate. And there's some real deep cuts in places, like way later, much later, when I think season 3, when they go to Cybertron, and there's bloody Grandus is there, like
he's in the lineup,
yeah, like he's screaming because he's scared of Sari,
yeah,
but like I mean he's from like a Japanese only TV show, like I can't remember what it's called now, but that's a really deep cut. Oh, I think I've got it in my notes. Transformers: Return of Convoy. That's, I mean that didn't even make it over to the US, so like. It's pretty impressive. And there's some homages to other things as well, like non-Transformers things. There's homages to Tenga Toppa Gurren Lagann.
Is it?
Yeah, Dirt Boss.
Oh yeah.
And also when spoilers, Sari upgrades herself, that's very like the animation from that show. And also a little bit like Fui Kui as well.
It is, yeah.
Sentinel Prime is modelled on the Tick.
It was his chin.
And he's voiced by the guy who voiced the Tick.
Is he?
Yep.
Wow.
Townsend Coleman in the Tick cartoon series. And there's really early on, I noticed this, so I noted it down. Well, I don't know how early on it is, but it's an episode where Optimus Prime has to save someone or something from a spaceship. I can't remember exactly what episode it was. But he's in an air duct. He's crawling through an air duct. And he says,
"Sure, transform me onto the ship. Rescue my old buddy from a bunch of Decepticons. It'll be fun."
Which is a reference to Die Hard.
Die Hard.
This was actually a late episode in Season 3 called Decepticon Air. Optimus also employed the same exploding elevator trick John McClane used in Die Hard.
I like the usage of like all the Beast Wars jargon in this show as well, like Protoform, Megacycle,
Sparks.
All of that. Like it really cemented it in like stuff outside of that show. Like it really, when it was starting to ingrain itself into other things, that those concepts would continue.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap up talking about the characters. So let's talk about the Decepticons.
Well, I mean, let's just start with the best character of them all, Starscream.
You think?
I mean, he thinks he's the best character of them all. So
okay.
No, yeah. So on the Decepticon side, you got Starscream, who is pretty much like G1 Starscream.
Yeah, he's playing to his stereotype, isn't he? Very much.
But he's a lot more threatening than G1 Starscream. He's not as like a lightweight. Like he actually can hold his own in a fight and does he was the main antagonist for most of those beginning encounters with Decepticons.
It's because he was the only Decepticon, really.
Yeah. But I mean, like, he's not a pushover. He's definitely somewhat of a threat, more so than, you know, he just wants to overthrow Megatron for the sake of it and go home. He actually is quite conniving. And then you've got Blitzwing and Lugnut, who kind of are like the comedy relief of the Decepticons for at least the first 2 seasons.
I'd say for all of them, really.
It's a weird take on Blitzwing, and it's something that, at least in toy form, stuck around for a bit. The whole him being a triple changer, I mean, he had 3 personalities and then 3 faces.
Yeah, I think that's good, and I like the fact that they capitalised on that in one episode.
Oh, and they use it against him or in combat, yeah.
They appeal to the personality that turns into a tank while he's flying, and he turns into a tank and falls out the sky. I thought that was quite good.
I think it's is it Man-E-Faces from He-Man?
Yes, it's similar to Man-E-Faces from He-Man. Yes, his faces rotate.
Yeah,
he has 3 faces. Yeah, but like they're weird, aren't they? I mean, they're all German.
Yes,
and he's kind of modelled to look a little bit like a kind of German tank officer or something, isn't he?
Yeah,
his head sculpt is very like that. But one of them is, I think you describe them as kind of fire and ice, don't they? Because one of them has fire abilities, one has ice abilities, and one prefers the tank alt mode, one prefers the plain alt mode, and then the third one is just crazy.
Yeah, it's just mental. The last one, yeah.
Yeah,
it's just I enjoyed them in terms of like Lugnut. On the other hand, is like devoted to Decepticon cause and Megatron wholeheartedly, like
unfailingly loyal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are more Decepticons that have, you know, carried on that type of idea now. But I mean, I don't think up until that point there was as many Decepticons who would hold that status of like, yep, Decepticons all the way. I do not question Megatron.
Shockwave.
Well, which Shockwave? Oh, the G1 Shockwave.
The Shockwave from G1 from cartoon.
Oh yeah, okay.
He was kind of unfailingly loyal, but yes, I agree.
Similarly to Bulkhead, he's one of the bigger, bulkier Decepticons, and definitely is a heavyweight.
I was going to say he's probably Bulkhead's opposite number, isn't he? Really big, lumbering, slightly slow, both mentally and in. And he has a bomb for a hand.
He has a bomb for a hand, yeah.
Which doesn't seem like a very clever idea, but it seems to work. But yeah, he's pretty powerful. But yes, he is unfailingly loyal. He would never betray Megatron.
Yeah, I think there is some sort of parallel for Dragon Ball Z as well for the 2 of them. Mm-hmm. The way they turn up and just blow up a part of the city, it calls back to 2 characters, Vegeta and Nappa, who's very similar, like small and big guy, lumbering idiot, and the smarter one type of deal.
My knowledge of Dragon Ball Z is fleeting at best, but I do seem to remember that. So I think you're on the money there.
What else is that? Black Arachnia as well.
Weird one.
It's more interesting way of them kind of keeping a similar thing to Beast Wars, of her being an Autobot to begin with, and having reasons to switch sides on her own instead of being reprogrammed. Like, she felt betrayed that she got left behind and had to join forces with the Decepticons to...
I think this is one of the few failings of the show, in that they don't set that up very well.
You don't think so?
No, because she's just there. She's just there on the ship with them, and she's a Decepticon.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot she was even on the ship in the first episode, because when she turns up later in the season, it's almost like she's never been a Decepticon. Like, she acts like she's not a Decepticon. She never is a Decepticon in the show. She's just out doing her own thing. And when I was writing notes for this, I was like, so, obviously, the Decepticons on the Decepticon Nemesis are Megatron, Blitzwing, Lugnuts, Starscream. That's it. And I was reading TF Wiki, and I saw it said that Black Arachnia was there, and I went, they've made a mistake. She wasn't there. She was there.
He was,
but nobody noticed.
I mean, I think they tried to, at least initially, I mean, I didn't finish watching all season 2, so I can't remember when she pops up again, that she really wants to get the Allspark to try and change back. For some reason as well, her Elita 1 form had like rogue powers, and she could copy things by touching them. And something went awry when she did it with all the organic spiders on that alien planet.
Yeah.
And made her into Black Arachnia.
Techno-organic.
Yeah. She wanted to undo it. So I can make the leap to think that's why she wanted to be close to this team of Megatrons and get into the Allspark so she could undo it underhandedly.
Yeah, I agree, but you're reading a lot between the lines, and I don't think that it was explained particularly well in the show.
I agree with you. They don't develop it like a lot of the other characters. Because when she turns up again, for some reason she's made Grimlock fall in love with her, and her and Prime are fighting for her affection.
Well, there might be some reasons for this, which we'll get onto later.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so there we've got Megatron left, haven't we, basically? I think we've covered everyone else.
Well, Megatron in this series is different in a ways that he's a lot more calculated and threatening. Especially in season 1, he's just ahead, locked in a tower, and for someone who was so imposing in that first episode, when he's introduced, and, he's having that big fight with the Autobots, and his foot is bigger than Optimus Prime. He has to come to terms with that he's just ahead and he can't move and can't do anything. And slowly he starts to sink his claws into Professor Sundak and get him to do things for him. And he comes up with these different schemes in order to test out what a new body would be for him, and makes the Dinobots and other human characters get intertwined with their super gimmicks and whatnot. So he's planning out different things, and even that first time he starts to become self-aware, he takes over a drone that looks very similar to his drone in Beast Machines.
Yeah.
And how he almost took them all down just on his own, just like that. So it goes to show he's not as idiotic or a bit Saturday morning cartoon villain as some other Megatrons have been. There is something there about him where he is quite threatening, especially in the guy's delivery of his lines. He's very chilled and softly spoken. He's not shouting at his Decepticons. He's just threatening you very subtly. And,
I think he's more akin to Beast Wars Megatron than he is to G1 Megatron.
Yes. Yeah. The parallel, especially if you're thinking like Beast Machines when he was just in the throne room a lot and was commanding his drones, is very similar. Especially that first season. Yeah,
exactly. So the other characters we have is the Sundaks. Isaac Sundak, who we covered a little while ago. He's a robotics, a guy who does all kinds of weird experiments, and the first season has lots of episodes where it's like, today, the experiment that's gone wrong is this, and then the Autobots have to solve some problem caused by something either Sundak has done by accident or that Megatron has somehow influenced through Sundak to do. He's well-meaning, but he makes mistakes.
It's like a Tony Stark of
the
Transformers world. He seems to be very like a real type of nerd. Like he's not in the spotlight. He doesn't, go around in business suits and pretend to be some sort of massive entrepreneur. He's in the lab most of the time, tinkering with things.
Yeah, he's always in his lab coat, and and then he's got his daughter, Sari, who is, for all intents and purposes, at least for the first couple of seasons, a little girl.
Yes.
Yeah. A slightly annoying one, but she's fine. I don't find her nearly as annoying as Bumblebee.
She's definitely one of the more helpful and actually proactive human characters in Transformers media.
Well, she is given a magic key.
Yes, but it's even when there are situations where she can't use the key as a crutch to help her with everything, and sometimes just to figure stuff out on her own.
Yes.
And I think especially as the show goes along, because in the first season she was using the key on everything.
This isn't working. Stick a key in it. This isn't working. Stick a key in it. Stick a key in it. Stick a key in it.
Soundwave is broken. Let me keep,
Just jamming a key in everything. Either creating a problem and then solving it with the key, or solving a problem with the key. If anybody almost dies, she fixes them immediately.
Well, it's what makes it, it's like I was saying, like a lot of the characters, it pays off as the show goes along, because, by the end of season 2 or beginning of some part of season 3, the key factor is removed, and it's no longer a factor that she can do these things anymore.
It's the beginning of season 3.
It's the beginning of season 3, yeah, that she does something. I mean, I don't know how much you want to spoil, but she doesn't have the key anymore.
Get onto it. We're just giving everybody listening fair warning that we will reveal this thing that you probably all know anyway. Go on.
And the others have to step up, and they can't rely. It's not a crutch anymore. Ratchet actually has to fix people again, which he's quite traumatized about. He's like, I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah.
But you get the feeling that they all kind of have grown as the show's gone along, and I kind of like that. I kind of like that it started in a place where all of these things are either being misused, or characters are, neglecting things, or they're taking things for granted, and when the Decepticons come into it and really, test them, they're better off for it.
Yeah. All the characters do develop over the period of the 3 seasons, which is really quite good. It's a lot better handled than a lot of other shows.
War for Cybertron.
Looking at you, War for Cybertron. Yeah, they learn from their from what they've done and their mistakes and so on, and they move on and things change, and you get the backstory of each character slowly filled out in a really kind of pleasing way, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I think that's really good. And yes, Sari she's an important character. She is part of the team. Very much so. Very, not standing on the sidelines. You can do it, Prime! Yeah, no, she wants to get stuck in. She gets stuck in, yeah. It's even, I forgot someone. One of my favourite characters in the show is the police officer, Fanzone. Captain Fanzone? Yeah. I mean, he's not really a major character, but yeah. No, but it's just like because they're superheroes, especially at that beginning, that where they have to interact with the police who actually should be, upholding the laws or apprehending these people. I like how they introduce him as another element of the humans having to deal with these robots destroying their town every week. Yeah, they do have to, especially in the first season, and probably second as well, but definitely in the first season, there's a lot of the idea that these are aliens from outer space, and they've got to acclimatize to Earth and get on with the humans and understand how their society works. And a lot of people complain about there being too many humans, and it's like, well, no, that's the whole bloody point, isn't it? I don't like that whole idea, everything should be on Cybertron. Then it could be about anything, couldn't it? It doesn't have to be Transformers. If everybody's a Transformer, what's special about being a Transformer? I think that's why I like some of the human characters, is because it's handled really well. It's sometimes, yes, I would agree with some of those arguments, because sometimes the human characters don't add anything, or they just repeat what the Autobots just said. Time and time again in the middle of battle, or again, that's bad writing, isn't it? That's bad. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's done well here, and should be, although it hasn't been, should be a good template or inspiration for future Transformers projects that have human characters in it. Let's see how they handle it in Earthspark. In Earthspark, yes. Fingers crossed, eh? Where would you rate the setting of
where they are and all that. Like, what did you think of the setting of a futuristic Detroit with all these robots and?
I think that the Transformers characters felt much more integrated into that universe than in many other shows.
Mm.
They were part of the community on Earth.
Mm.
So many shows, the Transformers are just off doing their own thing.
Yes.
And then they go and have a fight in an unpopulated area. And the humans are almost oblivious to them being about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at you, Armada.
Yes.
I'm even looking at G1, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's that kind of like, oh, this is all going off, and no one seems to be paying any attention. Whereas, yes, definitely in this, they lived in Detroit, and they were known, and they were like known by the populace and seen about and interacted with them much more. So yeah, I thought it was good.
And there was a clear distinction that the Autobots were the good guys and the Decepticons were the bad ones. There was none of that weird underlining sometimes they do where the Decepticons can pretend that they're good and humans will just believe them because reasons.
Well, Megatron did.
I mean, yeah, but under certain circumstances. I mean, like, not everyone else when Starscream turned up and started, shooting everyone.
Well, yeah.
People didn't forget.
Because Starscream and the Decepticons in general just considered the human beings as pointless, as horrible little flesh bags that they didn't need to interact with, Mm-hmm. Only Megatron was the one who kind of used them to his advantage.
Yeah.
Both by pretending to be an Autobot at first and getting his body rebuilt and then kind of using Sundak and, you know what I mean? Like, he saw a use for them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, generally the Decepticons just turn up and blew shit up. And the Autobots were like, we must protect life.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something that calls back to G1, but it's actually handled better than in G1. Because in G1, it was, yes, obviously, Optimus Prime would be like, oh, freedom is the right of all sentient beings, and we must protect this world from the Decepticons. But they didn't do an awful lot of that. They did all talk. So yeah, I think it's more integrated. So yeah, I thought that was good.
That was it. It's just I really liked the setting, and I think it was a good choice because, like you said, sometimes they're out in the middle of nowhere in a canyon somewhere, or
yeah,
in the desert.
We mentioned it in our Armada episode that basically everything happens in an unpopulated area, and the human world seems quite oblivious to the fact that these Transformers are on the planet because there was no real interaction with Earthlings.
And I kind of liked it as well because they kind of just dropped the whole disguise thing as well. Like, it wasn't as hammed up as it is in other shows like Car Robots, where they really try not to be discovered and keep in car modes in certain situations. Like, it's not necessary. I mean...
Well, I mean, it is and it isn't, but in this particular setting it isn't because robots are commonplace.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm a big fan of the robots in disguise premise, the idea that the reason you not the reason you transform, but the reason you choose an alt mode is to blend in. But yeah, it didn't really apply in this series, the same as it didn't really apply in Beast Wars, the same as it didn't really apply in other areas because the setting's different, But where it is the case, that's where it makes sense. But it didn't in this one because people are used to seeing robots.
In fact, I think in the first episode they said what you were talking about before, that the whole Optimus asks Teletron one to scan the local life forms for them to get modes, and obviously it scans the cars, thinking that they're the local life forms, not the humans.
Yeah, but I mean that was in G1, that was in everything. Like it's understandable that machine life coming to Earth would assume that the other machines are the local life forms. But yeah, that quickly goes out the window. But it's fine though because they use their alt modes for other reasons, transportation and so on and so forth. And because they are emergency vehicles, Optimus Prime puts out fires, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a good setting.
My optics!
So now we've kind of gone over what happens in the kind of first season. Should we just talk broadly about how we feel about season 2, season 3.
Well, season 2, they really start to expand on the characters on the Cybertron and what's going on elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a real, like, it almost kind of reminded me of Lost, the TV show. You know, when they would just have an episode and have flashbacks to what happened on.
Okay.
Before they were on the island.
I suppose. It's a bit of a weird comparison, but yeah, I guess. But that stuff does happen in season 1 as well.
It does, but it's very subtle. Like when
it's not
Sentinel Prime and Ultra Magnus comes to Earth. I'm pretty sure it's Bumblebee or Bobcat. One says it to the other that Sentinel Prime doesn't remember them, and there's just little things like that where they, like, these characters have obviously met before, and you don't really get to find that out until like the Wasp episode and why there was the big hoo-ha of this double agent on Cybertron and...
Yeah, that plot element gets introduced in season 2, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's like stuff like that. They start to expand on the characters and their history.
Yeah.
Which was nice.
No, you're right. Like I said, that does happen in season 1, but it happens more in season 2.
Yeah.
Because in season 1, you have a flashback to Elita 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you do see Sentinel in season 1, but in a flashback.
You see him in the flashback, but you don't get to know how much of Dick Sentinel Prime is. And you get a slight taste of it, but it's not as much like, oh, okay.
Well, yeah, but that's what I was talking about before. It slowly builds, doesn't it? The whole thing really nicely ramps up.
Yeah.
Slowly. Like, the first season is more like ground level, and you've got them fighting supervillains and experiments gone wrong, and kind of like what you might consider later to be kind of small fry stuff. And then as you move into season 2, it starts to ramp up, and then in season 3 almost kind of moves into kind of a big bloody war, as it were. But that's in the second season. Yeah, you definitely get more of it, I would say.
There's definitely the show has really good season finales, I would say. Like, it really get that at the end of the season, that this is getting serious, and it's,
the pacing is exceptional.
Yeah.
Like, very, very good. So season 2, what's the finale of season 2?
The big fight with the space bridge and Omega Supreme being revealed.
Yep.
Really good. I mean, I even love that whole callback to him being stuck in the mountain at that angle earlier on in season 2.
Yeah. Like I was saying about the pacing, you get some flashbacks in season 1 where you get the story behind, or part of the story behind Ratchet, RC, and at the time, an undisclosed secret project that's going on.
Yeah.
And then season 2, Ratchet reveals that the Ark, or whatever it is, whatever they're called. I don't think it's called the Ark, is it? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
It is.
You sure?
Yeah.
It might be retroactively called the Ark.
I'm pretty sure it's called the Ark.
Yeah? Okay, I'm gonna do one of those things where I look it up. I think it might be like people go, oh, now we're calling it the Ark. But you might be right. Anyway, it is Omega Supreme.
I think they even hint it in the first episode, because when they're under attack by the Decepticon ship, Optimus Prime tries to initiate the security protocol Omega, and it gets rejected.
Yeah, it does, yeah. I just think calling the ship the Ark, it doesn't make any sense. In Generation 1, it made sense it was called the Ark. But in this, it doesn't really, if you know what I mean.
I don't know. I mean, it does have Teletran 1 on it. I know that for a fact.
The biblical theme is not there, It's just a ship that a maintenance crew are flying around in.
Yeah, you got to look it up, aren't you?
I am, yeah. Teletran, it does have Teletran 1 as well. It has a voiced artificial intelligence that they address.
It has the Sky Spy. and everything.
They call it Teletran 1, don't they? But I don't know if it is the Ark, but you might be right. I'm looking it up now. Ark. No. Right. Oh, here we go. At BotCon 2007, Hasbro representatives repeatedly named the Autobot ship the Ark. At BotCon 2008, lead writer Marty Eisenberg claimed the ship is not the Ark, but merely a repair vessel. However, lead artist Derek J. Wyatt immediately responded that it very much is the Ark. A conversation that some fine sites failed to report accurately. The model sheet for the ship even labels it the Ark. However, no fictional depictions ever refer to the ship as the Ark. And it is eventually revealed to be a Mega Supreme. So no, it's not called the Ark.
What? So on paper it's the Ark, but it's not said in the show? Is that what you're saying?
They never call it the Ark in the show.
Okay.
They don't. Unless TF Wiki's lying, it says no fictional depictions ever refer to the ship as the Ark.
Listeners, when you're listening to this, we will definitely have a solid answer for this, because Orion Ghia would have done...
I've done it! I've done the research! I've done it! It's here! As far as canon goes, it wasn't the Ark. I think we've established the facts already, but just to satisfy Dave's incredulity, Orion, of course, did a little more research into this. The Autobot ship, inanimated, although strongly resembling the Ark from G1 in design, is never referred to as the Ark in any fiction. Never. Not ever. However, as stated, during development it was referred to as such by Hasbro and the creative team. Later, the Transformers animated Allspark Almanac Volume 2, published by IDW and written by Jim Sorensen and Bill Forster, gave the ship the codename Orion. But yeah, there you go. So yeah, we get that, and then we go into Season 3. So in Season 3, they're aware that there's a spy.
Well, they knew about the spy, but didn't know who the spy was.
Well, they don't know until pretty much the end of Season 3, really. Oh, and you get the introduction of... Is it Season 2 or Season 1 where we get the introduction of Blur?
Season 2.
Yeah. And for a while, he's just this car.
Yeah, he's a... what do you call him?
The Blue Racer or something. I don't know, something like that.
He's there to just check up on them. He's an intelligence officer. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, that's exactly what he is. Yeah, he's doing recon. But he is basically looking into the whole kind of double agent thing as well, which was really good actually. I usually have no time for Blur, but I liked this version of Blur.
I think he's one of the few other times apart from G1 where he's also super fast and speedy and actually is up to the name Blur. Yeah. I mean, he's popped up in other shows since, but he's not been super fast. He's voiced by the same guy from G1, so... I mean, I didn't know that until you brought it up earlier. I was like, oh.
No, I thought it was quite good. And, spoiler alert, what happens to him is really quite... I felt for him, you know?
Yeah, it's horrific.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is, yeah. It's the end of Season 2 where we discover Sari's not human.
Yes. Yeah.
She is a kind of weird techno-organic creature.
Well, it's hinted at in the end of Season 1 when her dad gets taken away by Megatron. In the first season, Season 2, she has to take over his company. And his board of director man, actual business suit, Tony Stark man, is going to take over the company because she has no legal papers. She has no documentation to prove she's a person.
She wasn't born.
Yeah. So that whole second season, she's looking for her dad and trying to prove who she is.
Yeah.
And then, this was leads to the big plot twist, the big reveal.
And we find out that Sundak found like a protoform, a human-sized protoform. He's very lucky, like, chancing across all of this cybertronic technology. This is the second time.
UFOs only land in America, so he was bound, bound to happen.
So it turns out she's sort of a Transformer.
Mm-hmm.
In a way. So yeah, that we get that, and then season 3...
which also explains her connection to the key and the whole spark, like why he had a connection with her.
Yes, it does, yeah, it does. It all kind of ties up nicely in a way.
Mm.
In season 3, she upgrades herself using the key, and she becomes more like a teenager, and she has... Doesn't he build her like a little transforming scooter thing or whatever?
Yeah, like Run? Does he have a scooter?
It's something like that, yeah. And then it turns into kind of a flying pack.
Mm.
And then she kind of becomes more part of the team in a way, because she could be more involved.
Mm.
And then season 3 is mostly about figuring out who the double agent is. And, well, Megatron ends up kind of stuck on a Mega Supreme warping about space randomly.
Yeah, he gets, at the end of season 2, him and Starscream's head get thrown into deep space with a Mega Supreme, and it's just them, like, as, like a married couple jumping through space, arguing all the time.
Yeah.
And him trying to kill him all the time, and it doesn't work because he's got the Allspark fragment in his head.
That's right, yeah, because the culmination of season 2 is trying to build... Megatron wants to build a space bridge. It turns out that, of all people, Bulkhead is the premier authority on space bridge construction. So he kind of blackmails him into helping or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, and then somehow... there's a bit of the space bridge that Bumblebee kind of ends up warping about, and it ends up on a Mega Supreme, and the Mega Supreme's kind of shooting about. But the long and the short of it is, over season 3, Megatron eventually gets control of the warping and also control of the Mega Supreme.
Mm-hmm.
Is that season 3? That is season 3, isn't it?
It is season 3, and he like sympathizes like clones. Uses Starscream's cloning technology, which he made clones of himself.
Yeah, that's quite important, actually, to mention that Starscream, very early on in season 1, becomes indestructible.
Yeah, he comes... because when Megatron...
Oh, season 2, isn't it? Because it's the Allspark fragments, because the Allspark fragments... the Allspark gets destroyed at the end of the first season.
Yeah, so end of season 1...
We're jumping about a lot here, listeners, sorry, but, I'm sure you can follow.
When Megatron comes back and gets his body back, he knows that Starscream was the one who betrayed him. So he doesn't waste any time in taking him out.
Yeah.
But in doing so, he kind of does something. The key does something to Starscream to allow him to get a piece of the Allspark. So he comes back.
Well, he gets a bit of Allspark lodged in his forehead, doesn't he, pretty much?
He does, yeah. And it keeps him coming back. So even though he keeps getting taken out by Megatron, brutally sometimes.
Yeah. He can't die.
Back.
Which is a nice, in a way, that's a kind of call back to Starscream's ghost, isn't it? And the fact that Starscream, and in Beast Wars, they elaborated further on that, saying that Starscream had basically an unextinguishable spark.
Mm-hmm. It allowed him to take over, possess other beings and do all sorts of things.
Yeah. Exactly, like Waspinator. So yeah, they're kind of doing a new take on that, which is quite cool.
I like that he made all the other Seekers as well from all these clones.
Yeah.
And they all were like different parts of his personality. And introduced Slipstream as well, because that character sticks around and I think is in Cyberverse or something, like she pops up in another show. But
yeah, I like the way they allude to, because they're saying these are different parts of your personality. You've got like one that lies all the time, and one that's really sycophantic, and then he says to kind of Slipstream, like, what part of my personality are you? And it's like, well, what do you think? So like there's a whole kind of feminine side to Starscream. I quite like that. It's good.
It's a good way of doing it, because even as the show progresses, I think at some point in season 3, where all the Decepticons are on some sort of ship or something, and there was Swindle, and he has his dimension pocket in his chest, and he gives the other Seekers, like, the cone heads, and,
Yeah, he does, yeah, he kind of upgrades them, but they become a bit different, don't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and so the culmination of season 3 is Megatron having, like, 3 Omega Supremes, cloned Mega Supremes, and run by Lugnuts.
So they're completely devoted.
Yep. Not Starscream, thankfully. Although Starscream did have control of a Mega Supreme for a little bit, didn't he? Yeah. What happens at the end of season 3?
Big fight. I can't remember how Prime gets it, but I'm guessing it's something to do with similar to what Sari had. Like, he gets a jetpack as well, and he can fly, and...
I think Ratchet builds it.
Does he?
I think so.
Remember. And at some point he gets the Magnus hammer as well, like, because some point in season 3, they try to assassinate Magnus, and someone gets the hammer, and it ends up on Earth somehow.
Yeah, well, Magnus is on his deathbed for quite a bit, isn't he?
And this Magnus hammer is basically like Stormbringer or Mjolnir, like it can control the heavens and bring down lightning.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful, yeah.
And so yeah, Prime's flying around building this, battling these giant Mega Supreme clones, and while the other Autobots try and get the Allspark fragments to blow them up, or...
Both Dave and Orion's recollection is a bit vague here. The other Autobots are separated into 2 groups. Ratchet, Bulkhead and Sari are on the moon dealing with Omega Supreme, who is being used to remotely control his clones. And Prowl and Jazz are on the ground on Earth, initially trying to assist Prime in fighting the clones, but soon realise they can't penetrate their armour. Prime then comments that the Allspark is the only thing powerful enough to shield the city, and Prowl theorises that processor over matter can be used to reconstitute the shattered Allspark, which is what he and Jazz then go about doing.
And then Prowl sacrifices himself.
Yes, him and Jazz, both ninja... what are they called?
Cyber ninjas or something like that?
Cyber ninjas, yeah. Using some sort of technique to save the day.
Processor over matter.
That's it,
Yeah. And he ends up dying, but to save everybody. Megatron is finally defeated by Optimus Prime.
Yes, he is defeated by Optimus Prime, but he's done in a way where Megatron's plan fails, and then Megatron and Prime are left behind, and they're just like, that's the moment I really love, when Megatron actually calls Optimus Prime by his name. Because for the entire season, he's just calling him Autobot.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that before. I didn't find that nearly as poignant as you do, but yeah, he does, I guess. You are right. I mean, Megatron spends the entire first 2 seasons, well, all the way up to the very end. He sees Optimus Prime as a annoyance, a thorn in his side. At first, he just considers him kind of insignificant. It isn't until that very last episode of season 3 that he actually addresses him by his own name and considers him more of a problem and possibly somebody on a similar level to him.
Because even on the Autobot side, Prime is put down as just, as Ultraman can say, it's not in his programming to be a hero.
Yeah.
And then you've got Sentinel, who's Sentinel.
Yeah, a knob. A coward, and it's not a very good guy, really. I mean, he's not evil, but he's a bit of a knob.
Yeah, he's almost like a Starscream on the Autobot side. Like, he's very...
I guess. I don't think he's quite as kind of underhand, but he's too thick. Yeah. He's too thick to be that underhand.
He doesn't want the burden of leadership, but he likes the glory of being the centre of attention. But yeah, it was just nice that you got the feeling that there was some sort of validation for the entire team, that they were able to, save the day.
Yeah, it's a fitting end to the series, even though we'll get onto it in a minute. There was more planned, but it ties up most things quite well. There's a few loose ends, but generally you have the arc of Prime ascending to being a hero, as it were, and Megatron eventually recognising that.
My optics!
So, what were your favourite characters from the show?
All right. I think on the bad guy side, I think I would still... It's a toss-up between Starscream and Megatron, but I think I lean more to Starscream because of all the shenanigans that happened to him throughout the show. Like I mentioned it before, like I think Starscream is like G1 Starscream, but like times 10, and it fits in this over-exaggerated world. And I would have to read the script. Like it's just certain lines he delivers, like when he meets up with Blitzwinging Lugnuts, and they say that they've been speaking to Megatron, and he's like, Megatron's been destroyed. I killed him. I mean, I saw him die myself.
Yeah.
It's like little moments like that.
Yeah, I mean, I like Starscream. He is played for laughs a bit too much, but he is good. Yeah, he is good.
And then on the Autobot side, I think I really like how they handled Prime and Ratchet in particular. Like Ratchet is, it's kind of cemented him as being an old grumpy, old wartimer character. It's kind of like merged with Cup, kind of way. Like he's just always seen as an older character now. It's a good development of that character, and Prime as well, because I like kind of origin stories of characters. So I like this interpretation of a younger Prime, who isn't the best Autobot ever yet. He's not, Supreme Commander. He's very much kind of like a Smallville Optimus Prime, like his early years.
Oh, that's why I don't like it. No, I don't not like it, but I don't like Smallville. Smallville is one of the worst things that's ever happened ever.
As an example, you get what I mean.
Yes.
He's not Prime, super, unstoppable force yet, and I like that. I like characters that are very flawed and have to deal, the underdog.
Yeah, no, they do that. Like I mentioned earlier, I think it's really good. It is like a kind of light version of Optimus Primal from Beast Wars, but I do like it. Go on.
I was going to say, I would say probably my favourite character though is on the Autobot side, apart from Prime, is Jazz. I really liked how they did Jazz.
He doesn't really do anything.
He's not. He's not in it a lot, but from when he is in it,
okay.
I like the way he had that connection with Prowl with the whole ninja stuff, but I also liked his interest and his intrigue in human and organics and how he was, had to calm down Sentinel. And
I like that he didn't take Sentinel too seriously.
Yeah. He was a character that was handled well, like one of these pop-up characters that they had. I think it was done. I mean, he was handled a lot better than he was in the movie. Like it was.
Oh wow, faint praise.
Well, no, but I mean,
almost zero characters in the movies were handled well anyway, and Jazz was unceremoniously murdered in the first movie.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. It was nice because, like we were saying, a lot of these characters are from G1, and these are completely new interpretations of them, and I think this was a good one for him.
Yeah.
But, what was your favourite characters?
Well, my favourite characters were Prowl and Ratchet. Both characters are similar in that they both had a really interesting character arc that went right through from the first episode all the way through to the end. But for Prowl, I rewatched all of it for this, and I remember seeing in the first episodes thinking, why is Prowl with these guys? Like everyone else is clearly it makes sense that they're on the team. Prowl, it doesn't make sense. It's like, well, why is he even here? And that is eventually explained. They chanced to cross him. He happened to be out there on a kind of soul quest because he'd fucked up quite abysmally.
Yes.
So he was out there trying to like find himself and kind of master processor over matter and all that kind of stuff. They accidentally destroyed his ship, so he had to kind of join them. And yeah, but like his whole backstory was kept really kind of on the down low for the entire 3 seasons until right at the end, where he all suddenly gets revealed, and then he sacrifices himself, and it's really kind of poignant.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a really good character, and I really liked it. I liked the way that was nicely fleshed out. And the same is also true of Ratchet. That whole storyline, his backstory of being in the war and the creation of Omega Supreme and the sacrifice that RC had to make, that was really great. And you had some really kind of dark stuff there with like post-traumatic stress and lockdown, his relationship with lockdown and all that kind of stuff was really, really good. So I thought, and like you say, the character of Ratchet, that characterization of Ratchet has followed through into things like Prime, IDW, that has become the new standard. I mean, you could possibly say that some of that was in the Marvel comics, but not quite realized the same way.
Yeah, no, it's really like you're saying, that stuff with lockdown, it really it shows a darker side to the war. That, in a kid's show, it might go with kids' heads and stuff, but for an adult viewer, you can really say like, oh, wow, some dark stuff was going on.
Yeah. And Lockdown is another character I really like, because he's a bounty hunter. He's not really on anyone's side.
Mm-hmm.
He's in it for himself. He's big on modifications and upgrades, and that becomes a kind of thing as well. And I like that whole kind of side to it. I thought that was good. I love the fact that he had a Rob sign, not a symbol.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah,
because he's on neither side really. But yeah, so that they're my favourites. They're so well realised, those two characters. I mean, most of the characters, excluding the worst character, have that going on. That kind of like storyline that gets properly fleshed out, and by the end of it, you know what their purpose was and why they were there, and what they'd gone through.
Mm-hmm.
So, least favourite character. Have you got a least favourite character or characters?
Not really. I mean, I remember when I first watched it, I didn't really like the Constructicons. And I thought they were a bit... I mean, it was just weird having 2 of them. Maybe that's what it was. It was...
Well, 3 if you include Dirt Boss.
Oh, of course, yes, yeah, the little guy, yeah. I think they were the ones that probably I needed a bit more from, like, in terms of them growing as characters, because they kind of... I think Scrapper was the only one who kind of did, and that was because he teamed up with the others in that one episode.
Yeah.
And probably Soundwave as well. I think Soundwave was underused. I mean, when he was there...
There are a few characters that were underused. I mean, the Dinobots were a bit underused.
Yeah, I mean, well, yes, but I think that the Dinobots were... Well, I mean, later on, but at the beginning, they were on an island for most of the time. But yeah, when they came over and they would pop up randomly.
Yeah, it was just like, we need some muscle. Let's get the Dinobots in, and then they'd forget about them for another 6 episodes.
Maybe it was a nod to G1.
Well, it was, but I didn't dislike the Constructicons. I just thought that they.
Well, that's what I mean. I don't think I really disliked anyone. It's just like I think if anyone I would have wanted a bit more from, maybe it would have been them on the Decepticon side, and for the Autobots, I think I liked the whole introduction of Jetstorm and Jetfire. Yeah,
those two. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're okay. They're quite one note, weren't they?
Yeah. So I mean, like, I think it's probably the one that was probably the weakest on the Autobot side. Like, they were fine.
Yeah.
I like the whole idea of they were flying Autobots, and that was a big thing. Cool.
Yeah. Well, you know what my least favourite character is? Bumblebee. Because it's just a tiresome stereotype that they use way too often in Transformers, and this is one of the worst versions. Like, it's just, I don't know. You'd expect him to go on a journey, and he doesn't. For the entire 3 seasons, he's just an idiot.
Yeah, they don't... That's probably the thing. It doesn't develop. I mean, even Armada Hotshot becomes leader at the end by some peculiar reason.
It's not surprising that he was originally meant to be Hotshot, because he's just as annoying.
I suppose so, yeah.
But yeah, I would probably like the character if he had gone on a bit more of a journey, but he didn't. I mean, and you know, okay, there was a season 4 planned, and maybe we would have seen more of that. But as it stands, throughout the whole 3 seasons, he's essentially exactly the same as he was in the first episode of season 1 at the last episode of season 3.
I know what you mean. I think the character, there are some changes and there's some revelations onto who he is and why he was on the team and everything. But I get what you mean. Character, like, just day to day, he's still annoying. Like, if you were,
yeah,
if you were in the Autobot base with him, he'd be cracking jokes and want to play video games or something.
Yeah, and I get that that's a character type that they like to put into these things, and I'm fine with that. But I just would have liked to see, something happen with him, which he didn't really. I mean, you had some stuff with the Wasp character and what he did in Elite Guard training, but nothing really seemed to affect him much. He's still pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Sari, I liked Sari, but I mean, really, the main problem with Sari is that her storyline was cut short.
Yeah.
They were never able to fully explain what she was.
I think it was one of the whole things about season 3, like, gets the upgrade, and she's not around as much, but I think that was, they were talking more about, like, her and her dad were having more time together, because he wasn't being involved in the company in season 3. The two of them were trying to patch up and, be father and daughter. Mm-hmm. So she wasn't as prominent as in the other 2 seasons, but when she did turn up, it was good. Yeah,
you just feel like there should have been more of a payoff to her character, which you didn't get. Yeah. But again, that is possibly due to the cancellation of the series more than anything else.
I think so.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't really dislike any of the characters massively. I mean, I rag on Bumblebee, but there's definitely worse characters in Transformers history than Bumblebee in this season, in this series.
My optics!
Favourite episodes? Do you have any?
I don't know what the episode is called. I really love the episode where Soundwave has put them all into a coma and made them think they're humans.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know what that is, what that episode that is. But yeah, that's all right. That's quite good.
The episodes in question are Human Error Part 1 and 2, which are episodes 8 and 9 of Season 3. A Christmas special that aired in April 2009. Yeah, that's right. April 2009 Christmas special. It did indeed involve Soundwave placing the Autobots in a coma and running a VR program where they are humans in a bizarre plan to reformat them into Decepticons.
It's a nice sort of callback to that G1 episode where they all get human bodies in those weird jumpsuits.
But it does throw up a few interesting questions.
Yeah, go on.
Like, well, how old is Bumblebee? Is he like a 5-year-old child?
I guess he's really young. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, why is he working on a space bridge repair team? Shouldn't he be at school?
I mean, age is always something very complicated when it comes to Transformers.
It's a good episode though. I do like it.
Like I said before, I really love the season finales. Like they're really good cliffhangers, and it's a good build up of all the problems that's been happening in the season.
Yeah, I have the opposite opinion, but I'll explain that in a bit.
Okay. I'm trying to think of what. There was another one, I think it's a season 2 episode where the headmaster guy comes back, and he takes Sentinel Prime's body.
Unsurprisingly, the one where the headmaster guy comes back is called The Return of Headmaster, and is episode 2 of season 2. Orion doesn't spring these questions on Dave. He has plenty of time to do his research, but he seems to spend most of it watching YouTube videos instead.
Oh yeah. Okay, so that's quite fun. I mean, I don't like the character of Henry Masterson at all.
No, but
yeah, it's quite a good episode. Yes,
it's a funny episode, and I like Sentinel getting his comeuppance kind of.
Yes, it is a good comedy episode, and yeah I do like that. I will agree with you on that. Yeah, I don't really like Henry Masterson and all his kind of elite gamer speak and stuff. I find that really irritating. But yes, it is a good episode. I do agree with you. Yes, so you said you really liked the season finales. I found the season finales just a little bit rushed and, well, just like anything. My least favourite bit of any Marvel movie is the last 25 minutes. It's like, oh, we're all just going to have a big fight now.
Yes.
That's where I switch off.
Okay.
So it's a bit like that. It just feels like it all kind of especially because the season finale is usually like a one episode, isn't it?
There's only 2 parts.
All right, 2 parts, but yeah. The season finale, they're okay, but I think the season openers are the better ones. The 3-part season openers are much better in my opinion, and one of my favourites is Transwarped, which is the season 3 opener.
Oh, when Megatron and Starscream are.
That is excellent. Far and away one of my favourites, because it's got a darker tone than season 1 and 2. You get to see more of like an expanded universe. We see a load of homage characters with some cool designs like Cyclonus and Spittor and Blackout and Stryker, and Rodimus looks cool as fuck.
He does.
I love Rodimus. Hotshot and Red Alert make an appearance.
They do.
Which is nice, because, they were originally designed for the first season, and then they got replaced by Ratchet and Bumblebee. And the Blur stuff in that.
That was so
fantastic.
Yeah.
So we mentioned it earlier, but like that stuff where he runs into space and he's running around like the rings of Saturn, and then the stuff with him and Long Arm Prime, who, spoilers guys, Long Arm Prime is Shockwave. He's actually a baddie.
Which was so cool that the toy could do that as well. They had the full mold.
It's true. Yeah, the toy could convert between both versions, couldn't it? But yeah, so when he realizes that Long Arm is the traitor, he runs away, and Shockwave is like, "Well, I can't catch you, but I can stop you," and he just crushes him into a tiny little cube, and then gives him to Cliffjumper to throw away. Dispose of this sensitive material.
Agent Cliffjumper, please dispose of this sensitive material.
Yes, sir. Long Arm Prime, sir.
It was crazy.
Yeah. So that stuff's brilliant. It's just a really good, and apparently it was made as a 70-minute movie.
All right.
I think it was shown like that at one point, but it was also cut into 3 episodes for other places. So it was, but no, I think that's brilliant. That definitely one of my favourites. And Bumblebee dies, which is a plus. Unfortunately, he gets better, but it's okay because it's in service of Ratchet's story, so that's fine.
You see, I think I probably would agree with you, but in the lead up to this, I didn't get to season 3. I watched the ending of season 3, but I didn't watch all of season 3, so I probably would agree with you if I got to watch it again.
Watch it. It's great, honestly. And the other one I would say is Thrill of the Hunt, which is a season 1 episode.
Is that when Lockdown comes in?
Yep. And it's where you first get your very first hints that this is not just a kids' TV show, that there is a deeper, darker storyline going beneath all the superheroic nonsense. Mm-hmm. It has, like we said before, like adult themes of Ratchet's post-war stress, and and how he's been traumatized by what happened to him in the war, both in regard to the Omega Supreme Project or the Mega Project, although I don't think they ever mention it as the Omega Project in that episode, but it comes up later. But you have that flashback with him being sent to find RC and having to repair her, and then escape from Lockdown, who's trying to capture her because she is Princess Leia from Star Wars, and she has the secret plans in her head. Yeah, never has she been more like Princess Leia from Star Wars than in this one, because they took it one step further than they did in the original Transformers movie. She has secret Death Star plans in her head. Well, that secret Death Star being Omega Supreme. Mm-hmm. And Lockdown is a great character. Like I said before, he's kind of a homage to Death's Head from the Marvel Comics.
I like his cool, sudden voice as well. Like
yeah, he's just a really good character, and he's got a cool alt mode as well. Like he's just good.
Doesn't he turn into like basically the same car that Ghost Rider drives in this new Hasselhoff project?
Sort of. It's a muscle car.
A muscle car.
I mean, it's similar. It's one of those ones with the engine poking out the body. Yes, but there are lots of those. And we get the whole beginning of the Ratchet RC Omega Supreme story arc in that episode, which I really like. So that's definitely up there with some of my favourites. Do you have a least favourite?
Probably some of the stuff with the human characters in season 1. Yeah, it was not. No, it weren't all bad, but some of the characters, like I think, like Professor Princess and
that's definitely on my list of one of the lamer episodes.
Wasn't they called that? Like they all joined up to make like some sort of league of bad guys at some point. Under was it Swindle who was helping them or something? That got revealed that. Yeah,
that's right. It's basically an evil supergroup. What was it? Aaron Archer.
Yeah, I think
Angry Archer, but he's named after Aaron Archer, I believe. And you've got Nanosec and is Meltdown involved? I don't know if he is actually.
I don't think he is.
No, I don't think he is. No, but it's those lot, isn't it? And you've got that woman with the clock that's got a piece of Allspark fragment in it, which means she can freeze time. Yeah, that's a bit iffy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, I don't mind it. I mean,
it's fine.
I'll happily watch the episode.
As far as like a kid-orientated episode, it's perfect.
Yeah.
My least favourite is probably the first. I think it's called Nanosec. The first episode with Nanosec in. Not only is Nanosec a bit of a lame character, it cements to me why Bumblebee is a prick.
Why?
Because he just basically deliberately shortens a guy's life.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, that's not very nice of you. It's not very heroic, is it?
That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, like you were saying, I think some of the super villainy ones are some of the weaker ones. Not all of them. Like you mentioned before, Meltdown. That was good, and there are some that are okay. And yeah, even though I said I don't like Henry Masterson, the headmaster thing works well. And that episode you were talking about with Sentinel Prime was great. So like, there are some of them work better than others, don't they? And I think Nanosec is one of those ones. It's like, yeah, I mean, he can run fast, and Megatron helped him do that for some reason.
It's not really. That's why I talked about Iron Man earlier. Like some of the villains were obviously just guys who got some technology, or Megatron or Swindle will help them get some sort of tech, and it just felt very like that's the more Saturday morning villain side of it. Those guys,
Exactly. That's what I mean. You can't really be too angry at them because it's
no.
It's what they're trying to do, isn't it? But at the same time, it's like, not my favourite.
My optics!
Overall, what do you think of the animated show?
It's phenomenal. I think it's up there with some of the best Transformers series.
I agree.
It's I don't know if I would say it's the best, but it's definitely one of the ones where I think, say like now that we've got probably like another 10 years of shows since then or more.
Yes, it came out in 2007 and ran till 2009. So yes, we've had over 10 years.
I would recommend Transformers Animated to anyone now more than any other show, because it's a show that is very good for newcomers. Like it's even better if you know stuff about Transformers, but if someone's stepping into the franchise for the first time, animated would be definitely the show I would recommend.
I do agree with you on that. I think it's the least dated.
Mm-hmm.
And it works as an introduction, even if, because it's so stylistically different.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the only problem. I think the fact that it is so wildly different in style to almost everything else.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a little bit jarring in that respect, but otherwise, absolutely agree with you.
It's a show that I think, like we mentioned before, I think it's got a really good balance of the callbacks, the cameos, the Easter eggs, all of that stuff for the older fans. But there is something to be said about the style and the way the stories were told, for new people as well. So I think it's, in that respect, it's right up there with some of the best shows.
And another thing it balances really well is being a kids' TV show, superhero show, with a longer running, deeper, darker, more adult storyline that the older fans can latch onto. Mm-hmm. It does both really well, I think. And it gets better as it goes on.
Yeah.
There's some real dark stuff in there that, as a kid, you could probably ignore or not notice, but it's definitely there. Like, PTSD kind of stuff with Ratchet, and the whole stuff about Prowl redeeming himself, as it were. Mm-hmm. Like, there's lots of, like you said, everybody's got a backstory, and they mostly are resolved in a pretty satisfying way.
Even the introduction of newer characters as the show goes along, like I think it fits really well. Like in other shows, like people just turn up and you expect them, oh yeah, you've been my buddy since, Stellar Cycles. How has it been?
Yeah.
They have characters introduced who obviously they don't know, and they build some sort of connection with, and you may see them again as the show goes along, and it pays off.
And they don't allow the show to be in service of the toy line. Mm-hmm. They don't have that kind of like, we must introduce new characters all the time, so because toys. They don't do that. The first season, you don't get many new toys introduced, and you get characters who don't even have toys get quite a bit of attention.
Yeah.
Like the the supervillains and so on, and you don't. I mean, in season 1, what you get, the Dinobots introduced, Lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Is there much else?
Well,
I suppose you see Sentinel Prime and RC and Little One, and again, not all these necessarily got toys, but it's not like bam bam every episode new character, new toy.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't do that. It passes it out nicely.
Yeah,
it doesn't kind of screw the pooch in terms of narrative in order to go, this one's out now, go buy this one. It doesn't do that, which I think is really good.
There's even a nice balance of the they clearly have Cybertronian modes at the beginning.
Yes.
And a lot of characters have at least a robot design that's different to the design that's of scanner form, like Prime, Ratchet, and Megatron, who I think do get toys of those versions, as well as their Earth mode versions.
Yeah,
but there's other characters that do that, but it doesn't force toys of a UFO Bumblebee or something like there.
Was there a UFO Bumblebee?
No, but I mean they.
No,
they didn't do that. So
no,
stuff like that as well. They could have easily done 2 of each character to sell toys, or
Yeah, they could, and they did in some cases. Yeah, not everybody, not always.
Not everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are subtle differences in how they looked when they were on Cybertron to how they look on Earth. I think Prowl looks a bit different as well back at Cybertron. Yeah.
The only one who doesn't is Black Arachnia.
And Bumblebee, really. Bumblebee doesn't look much different.
He does.
He does.
So there's a whole thing about why he looks like Wasp.
I just switch off when he's on screen anyway.
Him, Wasp, and Cliffjumper have the same body mold, and they make a whole thing about that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know they do. Yeah, but he doesn't look terribly different or not enough that I really noticed. I suppose he probably does. But like, just to finish off talking about what we thought of the show, we should probably talk about what people thought of the show. It was pretty successful. Mm-hmm. It was a #1 television show amongst boys aged 6 to 11 on both cable network and cable and network television. Mm-hmm. And it lifted the ratings of the neighbouring shows in the Cartoon Network's dynamic action scheduling block. So it was actually a fairly popular show. Obviously, fans complained about it at first of being too kiddie orientated, but they soon changed their tune. Mm-hmm. And it's actually held with quite high regard by a lot of fans, I think.
It popped up a lot when we went to TF Nation, people's love for it. It's definitely felt in the dealer room and at the bar, people were talking about animated.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was a really good show, and like you were saying, mate, one of the best. I'd say it is one of the best. I mean, there are shows that I think are better, but it's. I mean, for me, it's probably behind as far as television shows. Mm-hmm. I mean, if we're going to talk about fiction, it goes a bit further down the list. But talking about television shows, I would say it's behind Beast Wars and Beast Machines as either the second or third favourite. My second or third favourite Transformers TV series.
I agree. I think it's down to the characters and the risks that were taken in both of those shows. Really, it's probably why animated. I can understand why other people might be drawn to it a bit more than Beast Wars because of the whole organic modes thing. But it's definitely something that. It's a good example of when Transformers does stuff right in terms of toys, fiction, character development. Like, it's a real good example of that.
Yeah.
And, it's felt in the fandom because there's a want for these characters to come back, for these designs to come back.
Sadly, there doesn't seem to be too much sign off.
Well, maybe.
I mean, we'll get onto that a little bit later. But, yeah, I mean, it is really good, and it's just a shame that it got cancelled.
Yeah.
My optics!
Oh, what's that? It's the tedium alarm! Shit, we've been talking about Transformers Animated for almost 2 hours already. Time flies when you're talking about cancelled cartoons, doesn't it? Talking of which, we're getting on to the cancellation, the theme tune, the comics, the video game, and other miscellaneous nonsense, but most importantly, the toys, in part 2 of this podcast, due out in a couple of weeks. Feel free to lodge your complaints or sing our praises for part 1 on social media. Find me at Ghia Orion or Ryan_Ghia on Twitter and Instagram, respectively. Dave, where can they go and blame you for this mess?
You can always find me on Instagram, VirtualDave26.
Excellent. Don't forget that if you've enjoyed this podcast, you can let us know by liking, subscribing, sharing, reviewing, etc., etc. We really appreciate it. Not only that, if you want to show your appreciation with actual money, go to www.patreon.com/AARGH. Don't forget the AA. Also, for patrons only, we put this episode up in its entirety, so you'll get to listen to it all 2 weeks ahead of the masses. Nice perk, right? Right, we're off. Thanks for listening, and please join us next time on
Out of My Optics!